When I watched Star Wars growing up, I always wondered how they created those insane Millennium Falcon shots in space. And I mean, way back in 1977. That was almost 50 years ago. Well, I decided to find out. Using a skateboard, Bristol board, and getting bored, I set off to recreate 3 iconic Star Wars Millennium Falcon shots. From recreating asteroids to entire planets. All in my bedroom. And the first step was building a set. So let's turn this desk into a full-on mini movie set.
Turbocharged backpack. Johnny Test genius sisters use him like a lab rat. Johnny Test seemed freaked out at home, a super busy mom.
Alright, now that we have an open table, let's fill it up. The original Star Wars movies used huge green screens and blue screens, but I did not have that budget, so I had to improvise. Using blue Bristol boards instead. Now that I had the background ready, it was time for the main character itself. Which was for some reason impossible to find. Everything was either way too small or way too expensive. And after searching what felt like every website ever, I finally found one on Facebook Marketplace. But it was 30 minutes away. So... And here we finally have it, the Millennium Falcon itself. This thing is huge. Not to mention the detail. I mean, look at this thing, man. Honestly, this is making me kind of excited to film. And I think it's time we get started with shot number 1. Okay, obviously there is a lot to unpack here. First of all, the screen is littered with asteroids. Lots of them. And while I unfortunately do not have access to asteroids, I do have access to something similar. Rocks. I got them from outside. I tried to find rocks that look similar to the ones in the original. But never mind that, because we gotta figure out how to make these things float. See, in the original, the rocks aren't just static, they're actually moving. For example, this rock starts off showing this side, and by the end of the shot has rotated 100 degrees and is now showing this side. Which basically means I can't just take a still photo and edit it in post. I have to figure out a way to actually make this rock spin. But how in the world am I supposed to make a rock rotate vertically in the air? And that's when I had an idea. What if I flipped it? What if instead of rotating the rock vertically, I moved the camera around the rock horizontally and flipped it in post? But I need it a lot smoother. And that's when I faced my first problem. Notice how the light hits the rock. As the rock turns, the light travels around it. Which means if the rock's the thing moving, the light can be still. But if the camera's the thing moving, then that means I have to find a way to move the light with it. And after a little bit of keyframing and editing, the asteroids are finally completed. And now there's only one thing missing. I put it on a hockey tape roll to make it look like it was floating, but the thing was so big it didn't even fit in the blue screen. So, after many little adjustments and interesting techniques, it was finally in the right position. But there was still one difference between this, and that was, of course, this giant glow from the back. But how in the world could I recreate that? YouTube tutorial after YouTube tutorial. I tried experimenting with all sorts of things, but nothing was looking like the original. And that's when I had the idea to get a white screen off Google, make it fit, keyframe it, make it glow, and now I can finally present to you the completed first recreation, the asteroid shot. I'll run that back one more time. Dude. Look, it may not be 1-to-1, but considering I made that in my bedroom, literally on this desk right over here, I'm honestly really proud of it. But I can't celebrate too early because I still got another shot to do. And this one's more like 2 shots. Let me show you what I mean. Now, at first glance, these might look even easier than the last one, but in reality, there are a lot of hidden challenges. For now, though, I'm going to start with what I already learned from the last one. But of course, there was a slight problem. See, at the beginning of the shot, the ship faces the camera, but by the end of the shot, it's facing an angle, which means that this head-on approach isn't going to cut it. So instead, I tried capturing several angles, which meant that all the movement would have to be fully edited. And while I thought that was a great idea at the time, for some reason, eventually I realized that it was not going to work. I mean, just look at this, like that is just sad. But the worst part was, that was only the beginning of the problems. The back glow was tweaking out, the shots weren't matching up, and I still had no idea how I was going to recreate the entire planet. And that's when I realized I had a decision to make. Either accept it, or go back to the beginning, set everything back up, reshoot and re-edit it all over again. So I got to work. And this time I finally got the right angle. Now it was not perfect and there were still some times where it came out of the blue screen, but all that meant was I was going to have to put in extra work and mask out the whole thing. As for the back glow, I just deleted it and started from scratch. And after having to deal with many annoying and overly complicated problems, I finally got something that I could work with. And with that, the bases for the shots were complete. But there was still one thing left that I had no idea how I was going to recreate. The giant planet. So the first logical thing I thought of was to go on Google and find out how George Lucas actually created it in the original. Now unfortunately, I found out it was literally just all CGI. But that defeats the entire purpose of this challenge, because I'm trying to do this as practically as possible. Also, I don't know how to do CGI. But hope was not over, because I had a genius idea. If I can't do CGI, but I still want it to look as identical as possible, there's one way I could do that. And that's if I just printed the image, slapped it on a Bristol board, and edited it in. And to my surprise, it actually kind of worked. All it took was a little editing, a little scaling, a little color correction, and it was finally complete. So now I can present to you the second and third shot, the planet shot, and the other one. I don't know what to call it. Here it is. Not gonna lie, this one may have seemed easier, but it was so much harder than the last one. And I'm just happy I finally completed it. So, can somebody actually recreate Star Wars in their bedroom? Yes, they can. If you like this video, please subscribe, and you're probably gonna like this one right over here, where I try to make a movie completely alone. Oh, and by the way, I fooled you guys this entire time if you thought it was day. It's actually pitch dark outside. These are just lights. Ha, fooled you.